Welcome, dear friends, to another episode on Vigyavastu. And today we have with us the revered Sir James Braha. Namaste, sir, and welcome.
Thank you.
And people have really, literally written to me, James sir back, bring James sir back. So thank you
James,
for this.
James has not been very available because
Yes,
of this book.
correct. So James sir has just written a very beautiful book by the names of the BRAHA Sutras. You can see it on the screen. And Sir has put all his sutras into this. This is his work from many, many years. Sir, can you tell us something about this book?
Yes, I will tell you that last night my wife and I were walking. I spent a year on this book. It started November 2020, and it took much longer than I thought. It was much harder to write than I thought. And I thought that when I was done, I would be so fantastic. And I said, I'm sad. She said, "Why are you sad?" I said, "I will never be able to do this again." This is the result of a lifetime of practical experience. It's not theory, it's what I've experienced.
Correct.
And it came about because I gave a workshop and a lecture at the Vedic Astrology Conference in Sedona, Arizona in 2019. And I worked on everything I wanted to say. So I thought, I worked so much, I have enough for a book. But
Correct.
this is but this is way more than what I presented at the conference. At the conference, the title was What I Wish I Knew 40 Years Ago. That's what the title was. But when I sat down to write all of the different points that I did, it wasn't for a one-day workshop. It wasn't for a 2-hour lecture. I had an entire year to sit down and write everything that came to my brain. And a lot of what came to me was that as I would write in the morning, then I would do my astrology readings in the afternoon. And when people would say something that they thought worked in astrology, I would have to say, no, this is the way it works. And then I would make a note. I have to write a sutra on that. There are so many sutras based upon people saying things that were not so accurate. Okay. And so it made me sad that, I might have other things to teach, but this is everything. And I'll tell you something. The book is, you can put us on the screen, please. Um, the book is, I didn't know how big it would be. At first, I thought I will call it Vedic Astrology Tips. But then a friend of mine said, I took all your notes when I was teaching him and put them in a file called the BRAHA Sutras. So I thought, oh, that's how the name came about. And the reason there's 216 is because it's double the sacred Hindu number of 108. So in the book, actually, if you Americans Americans may not know this, but when the Indians get to the sutra number 108, you'll see there's a couple of symbols, Om symbols.
Correct.
And at
Yes.
216, again, the Westerners are going to go, why did he flag 108 and 216? Well, that's why.
Correct.
When I finished the book was somewhere around October or something like that. It's April now. I was October. And I thought I was done. But then I said, oh, wait, I wanted to put in something about how to analyze confusing horoscopes. So I thought, well, that'll just be a little addition. No, it was a 10-page edition. I analyze the date. I think it's, if I remember correctly, something like February 3rd, 1962. All the planets were in Capricorn and the North Node is in Cancer. Nothing else. All the planets in one sign. I said, here's what you do to analyze a horoscope like that. And it took 10 pages to do it. Then I thought, oh, I forgot to say something about the bridging of Hindu and Western astrology. When people listen to my lectures and they say, wow, that's the guy I like. Not everybody's going to like me. They're going to like others. But when they say, that's the guy I like, the greatest blessing I ever had in this field was that I studied Western astrology from 1978 until 1982. So that, and I wouldn't, this tells you how stubborn and picky I am. I would not become an astrologer during those 5 years. I said, because I can't tell how many children, I can't tell the career, the kind of career, I couldn't do it. I got a lot of great information. People loved hearing about their lives, but I couldn't do that. When I went to India, that's when I learned how to do that. Okay. So then I could, so people think, oh, so now he does Vedic astrology and that's how he's so good, but they don't understand. It's that I also know about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I also, there's a lot of things, let me tell you, there's a lot of things in 2022 that are now popular in Vedic astrology, and people don't know it's because James Braha brought what he knew from Western into the picture. People were not even using the degrees. It didn't matter to my teacher that my 10th ruler was aspected by Jupiter within 14 minutes, less than 1 degree. Didn't matter to them. That was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I said, you've got to use it. So there's lots of things like that. Now, the one of the things that's happening is that people are reading my book. I mean, my proofreaders are reading it. A couple of people have, the book hasn't even been out yet for the public. You can buy it. The Westerners can buy it on Amazon.
Correct.
The Indians are going to be able in today or tomorrow, which is March, where are we? March 22nd. I don't know when they're going to hear this interview, but after March 23rd or March 24th, it's going to be available on Google Play Books, which
Okay.
serves India.
So
Not
we'll give the links in the description box. People who want to buy from Amazon outside
okay.
India can buy on Amazon. The link will be given in the description box. And from
Amazon
India,
Amazon will only be America and Germany and
yes,
France.
yes. So we have
India,
many followers from America, Germany, and everywhere.
sure. Oh yeah. But for the Indians, they
Yes,
can buy it on Google
Google
Play
Play
Books.
Books.
Yes.
Correct. Both the links will
So
be given in the description box.
good. So I would hear comments from my proofreaders and things, or people that already left reviews on Amazon, and they would say, "This is great because James Braha tells what actually works."
Correct.
Now that tells you how vulnerable the field of astrology is. How dare anybody teach anything that doesn't work? There is no reason for anybody to say, wow, he teaches you what actually works, because every teacher should be doing that. And I have readers, one of my proofreaders said, James, since he was editing and proofreading, and he said, I'm using what's in that book, and every time I read a chart, it's accurate. And I said, well, what the hell's been happening in the last 5 or 10 years? It was
Correct.
inaccurate. So that's telling you, I'm saying this not to promote my work. I'm saying it in order for people to understand. I have a sutra in this book about how gullible astrologers are and how gullible the people that come to astrologers are. How many astrologers have you met that are overly skeptical? Very few, very few. How many have you met that are gullible? Almost all of us. I'm not saying I'm not gullible. I'm gullible too, but I have a little voice in the head says, don't be gullible here. Check it out. Be skeptical. Is this for real? Okay. So that's something that goes on throughout the book, throughout the book, to be skeptical and to go by your experience. And here's an interesting one. I say in the book, and I said this on interviews all over the place, but I'm going to emphasize it anyway. For 20 years, I thought that if Jupiter and Mercury aspected each other or conjunct, it was wonderful. But every so often, it was terrible. So eventually, I realized that and I changed it and I started teaching that. Yesterday, my son goes for an interview. He just graduated college and he wants to get a job. So I said, well, when is the interview? So he told me it's 4 o'clock, at this particular place and date. So I draw a horoscope, and right now Jupiter and Mercury are conjunct in the skies. So the first house for the interview is Leo, and in the seventh house is Jupiter Mercury, and I go, uh-oh. Now I'm thinking, oh, but they're two benefics. I said, uh-oh, something's going to be wrong with the other side, with the seventh house. This is his sixth interview. He had 5 interviews, and now he's going to meet the CEO, right? And I tell him, he says, I don't want to know too much. I said, all right, I'm just going to tell you there's going to be something weird on the other side. I think what it is that the other guy's going to be scattered, mentally scattered, or something like that. I don't know. After the session, after the interview is over, he says he was shocked because there were 2 people at the interview. One was the CEO, the other was someone there bombarding him with really harsh questions, not just serious questions, but harsh. So, first of all, it tells you a little bit about when you're doing prashnas. The other person is the 7th house, but those are the things that So this book is like that. And the other thing is, I'm not going to mention which sutra this is. I don't want to mention it till people get to the book. It is sutra number 162, but I won't tell you what it's about. And one of the and it's 20 pages long. And one of the readers, I was saying, oh God, it was so painful to write and so hard to write. And she said, really? Why was it hard? So this is just an interesting fact about writing. You read the book, and if it's clear and very direct, you think, well, that was very easy to say. No, this book was harder than any book I ever wrote. And at the end of the 216, I kept coming up with very important things. Why were the important ones left not even in the 216? Because I didn't want to get to them because I knew how hard they were. So I finished the 216, then I said, oh, I've got to do confusing auras. Oh, I've got to do this one. Then I had to pull out the cheaper ones, the sutras that weren't so important. And the best sutras were actually written at the very end of the process. So I'm going to tell you some of the sutras. I'll tell you a little bit. I also want to mention something, though, for your readers. I have about, over the last 20 years, because of my other books, I have about 5,000 Facebook friends. But I know that most of them came and went, they're gone. And every time somebody wants to be a friend and I want to put them in, Facebook says, oh, you have to delete some others. I don't know who to delete. I don't know these people's names. I know about 200 people. The others I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be offended to be. So I have a public page that my wife set up for me, and I put some stuff on there a year ago, but I haven't been able to get back to it. But my wife's going to figure out how to get back to that. So if people cannot get onto my Facebook page, there is a public page. It's just a matter of how I can start adding so that, okay. So let's talk about one of the sutras that I have is called the Common Sense Dilemma. The Common Sense Dilemma. So when I describe personalities, I go by the Western system. I am a Libra through and through, personality-wise. But if you go to the Hindu system, I'm in the last degree of Virgo. My wife is an air sign. She's got 3 planets in Aquarius, but if you go back to the Vedic, she's Capricorn. But personality-wise, we're both air signs. So the common sense area, astrology is, I don't know, 50, 60, 80% common sense. You have to use common sense. And so many people don't. And some of them, it's because they're water signs. For example, so they get very emotional. So I say over and over and over that Sadesati is the most brutal superstition. It works when Saturn conjuncts the moon itself. It's rough when Saturn conjuncts the moon. It's rough if your Sadesati, if one of the houses in your Sadesati is the ascendant, it's going to be rough, right? But the idea that 18 years of your life are going to be terrible and you should fear them is utterly ridiculous. And it doesn't take much common sense to see that. 7.5 years, terrible. And then you have a Dasha Bhukti that's no good. You have to add to the 7.5 years, every 29 years, 7.5 terrible ones, plus the bad periods. It's ridiculous. So I'll get an email. James, I found out Sadesati really does work. Look at what happened. And they tell me 2 instances of bad things that happened. I don't even know how to address this. I don't want to make them feel bad, but we're talking about 18 years, and they're giving me 2 periods that were bad. Nicha Bhanga Raja Yoga. James, it really does work. I found one. I find Nicha Bhanga to work 2 or 3 times out of 10. Now, if you use it because it's wonderful 2 or 3 times out of 10, guess what you just did to 70% of your clients? Oh, don't worry, this fallen planet's going to be great. So this is a common sense dilemma. And I say, how are you? I list about 6 or 7 different things that require the littlest bit of common sense, right? And then I talk about why are we lacking common sense? And I address that in one of the sutras. The best thing, and you know, it sounds like I'm criticizing other people, but let me tell you, I have no common sense when it comes to cartoons. People can, if 10 people show me a cartoon, I will only laugh 2 or 3 times until I say, well, I don't get it. Then they explain it, and then I laugh. When I do test taking, I can't take tests. I have no common sense with them. I don't know why. But if my life was going to be about cartoons and test taking, I would find out what the heck is going on with the common sense. Okay? So that's what has to be done. Another one is the Kuja Dosha. People use Kuja Dosha. It works. It's active in about 40% of horoscopes. And it works. 1, 4, 7, 8, 12. If planets are there, there's going to be problems. But then they add Kuja Dosha from the point of view of the moon. If Saturn's in the 1st, 4th, 7th, 8th, or 12th from the moon, then there's Kuja Dosha. You now have just made every client of yours, 7 or 8 clients of yours are going to have divorce. Okay. So I have these, let me see if I can find another one. The Varga Charts. They use Varga Charts without finding out if they're accurate. They don't even look to see whether the ascendant degree is very close to the point. They just do it. They get a chart that's 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock. They don't even ask, is this from a birth certificate? So these are common sense things. And one of the things that I say about the common sense is that a lot of it has to do with self-improvement, meditation, self-improvement, and really digging deep. Nobody wants to go to therapy. Nobody wants to go and do workshops for self. I shouldn't say nobody, because I did it all my life. But this book, the point of this book is to make people the best astrologers they can be. They come to me and say, I want to be like you. I want to be able to predict this and this and this. If you really want that, I'll tell you flat out, you cannot do it if you're suffering with a lot of emotional baggage from a bad divorce, a bad childhood, a sexual assault. You cannot, your mind will not be free. Your mind will not be clear to have the common sense. So there's things, so the whole book is like this. It's explaining, things like that. Another sutra I have, some of these are pet peeves. If you don't know that a horribly afflicted Venus is going to cause a terrible Venus Dasha, consider quitting now. Just consider quitting. Because I get so many people that say, I was told my Venus Dasha would be great. I said, but it's completely afflicted. Or I was told Rahu would be terrible, but it's been great. Of course it's been great. It's in the career house. They think if it's Mars, Saturn, Sun, Rahu, Ketu, it has to be bad because it's a malefic. So these are such simple things. I talk about when a person says they don't know their dharma. I don't know what I should do. I don't know my dharma. This is a sutra called Dharma Comes from the Heart. It is sutra number 84. What that means is that everybody knows what they love. You can't not know what you love. What they're really saying is, I don't have any confidence to do what I really want to do. So you have to guide them. Because it's always about confidence. So you say, what did you want to be when you were a child? What did you love then? What if I was a great guru and I could give you with miracles whatever you want? Tell me what you would like to do. And then you're going to hear, I'd like to be a great lawyer. I'd like to be a great actor. You'll hear it. But if you just say to them, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'm very confused. I don't know. And then if their horoscope indicates that they should be a scientist, they say, well, I have no talent in that. You should be a writer. Well, I'm not skilled in that. You should be this. I'm not smart enough. They haven't answered the question, would you love this? Do you love this? They answer, I have no confidence. And then you have to explain to them that if it's your dharma, if you really love it, then it's your dharma. And then even if you have no experience, as you start to do it, you get better fast because it's your dharma. Another sutra is about too much positive energy in a horoscope is detrimental, can be detrimental. When you start doing astrology in the first 5 years, oh my God, Jupiter's on the ascendant. Venus and Mercury and Moon are in this house. This is, all the benefics are fantastic, right? And then you start talking to the person about all their great talents and abilities, and they go, I got to get off my butt and make it happen. And I say, but you're 35 or 40. You haven't made this happen? No. Now, that's a real conundrum. These people have been born with very good karma. They go through the first 30 years of their life happy as anything. They get what they want. People favor them, but they're lazy. So then they're 35 or 40, and they say, but I'm not happy because I'm not accomplishing anything. Now, this doesn't happen with all of them. Many of them will be artists, writers, artists, because when you have Venus and Mercury and, those are very creative planets, they'll usually, many of them are famous. But the ones that are not are lazy. They can't help it. They feel good. How are you supposed to manifest urgency when you feel good inside? So Venus right on the ascendant is one of the most difficult things for a horoscope. Everybody likes them, they look good, but they can be lazy. Now, when I see that in a horoscope, not just Venus on the ascendant, but the benefics, the first thing I do when I'm studying the chart is I hope there's some bad aspects somewhere in this horoscope, something that makes them struggle. Because if there's not, they won't get anywhere. That's one of the sutras.
That's a different thing, sir, today. Learned something new.
Yeah.
Benefics should have a malefic aspect.
It doesn't have to be malefic aspects on the benefics. I'm saying somewhere that is a
Somewhere
struggle.
they should be, so that they get up
Struggle.
and work and struggle for it.
Yes, yes, yes. So another thing I teach, and some of these things I'm saying, you may have heard in other lectures, because I've been talking about the sutras all year.
Correct.
But you need repetition. In this field, you need repetition. When I was in India, my teachers taught me at night after their work was over. Do you know what I did? from 9 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night, you know what I did? I listened to the recordings over and over and over, because these people knew what they were doing. Santanam, my teacher Santanam, had already translated 5 or 6 massive Indian ancient scriptures, Brihat Parashara, you know, Parashara's masterpiece, and Saravali and Horosara. He knew what he was doing. So when you find someone that you know what they're doing, you like one of the proofreaders, she said, James, I have read your book 5 times. I just keep reading it. And I understand this because when I got into Western astrology, I found Isabel Hickey's masterpiece. It was the best Western astrology book I ever found. She was 70 when she wrote it. I'm 70. I've had a lifetime. It's completely different from when I was 35. So so I said, I'm going to be an astrologer. All I have to do is memorize what's in that book.
So
It
which
was,
book? Please repeat.
I will. I found out that you can't do it. You can't learn. You can't put everything that they've put in there because it's a lifetime. That's what I've
Okay.
put in. So her book, it's Western astrology. It's the best one, and it's called Astrology: A Cosmic Science. Astrology: A
A
Cosmic
cosmic
Science
science.
by Isabel Hickey. The only thing is, she was writing in the late 70s. Not enough was known about Pluto. So a couple of years after that book, she wrote the book on Pluto, which is a little pamphlet. I don't know if you can still get that. I'm not sure. But anyway, so one of the sutras that I've mentioned before, I'm going to mention it again because you got to hear repetition. When two malefics aspect a house and no benefics aspect that house is ruined. Now, it's going to help if the ruler of the house is very, very strong. Of course, that's going to help. But two malefics are going to devastate the house. As long as there's no benefics also aspecting that house, it's ruined. And if three malefics aspect that house, it is completely destroyed. Same thing with a planet. Let's say that you have the moon or Venus, and let's say Venus is in the middle. It's in the middle of Leo, okay? So it's 15 degrees Leo. You could have Saturn at 1 degree throwing an aspect onto that sign at 1 degree, 14 degrees away from Venus. And you could have Mars aspecting that Venus, but again, like 28, 29 degrees. So that no planet is really aspecting Venus tightly. It doesn't matter. If two malefics are aspecting them, it's devastated. And so there's a sutra in there about this, and um, it's just something that it took a long time. You know, I would when I was beginning, I would write down, oh, Saturn aspects this house, oh, Mars aspects, but I never put it together that hey, there's two malefics aspecting, or there's three benefics aspecting. And then one of the sutras in the book is about personify the planets. See the planets as gods. See the planets as people. So if if Mercury is in between, on one side of Mercury is Saturn, on the other side of Mercury is the sun. So you imagine if you're Mercury, imagine you're in a room and there's a mean, bad person on your right, and on the left is a nasty person. You got nowhere to turn. On the other hand, if you're Mercury at 3 degrees and Jupiter is at 6 degrees, and then Mars and Saturn are at 10 or 12 degrees, then you can say, hey, I'm in a room and there's these two really evil people, but I got this guy over here who loves me. And he says, don't worry about a thing. I got your back. So you personify the planets, and it makes a huge amount of difference. Um, why is the moon so important? Why is the moon so important? The moon is so important. aside from all the reasons you already know, the moon represents you, it's your feelings, it's your emotions. It's because the moon is the subconscious mind and the moon is the childhood. It's not so much it's the subconscious mind, it's that the moon is the childhood. Whatever happens in your childhood gets fixed in the subconscious mind. So if you are 5 years old and 3 years old and 6 years old, and the parents, you have Indian parents, because Indian parents are the best. They're loving you. They treat you like God. They just give you everything. They treat you well. They're not harsh with you. Then what happens? What happens is that gets fixed in your subconscious mind within the first 7 years. So now, for the rest of your life, it's natural. The child doesn't know that there's anything special going on. All the child knows is that life is good. So after 7 years, you expect people to treat you well because your parents did. And when they don't treat you well, you go, what the hell is that? I don't treat me like that, right? On the other hand, if the childhood is nasty and there's not enough food, there's not enough money, or the parents are mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be bad parents. Just the childhood was brutal. You get used to it. You get used to it. I had a brutal childhood, and I remember when I was older, when I was an actor, I was doing this one scene with this guy. It was an improvisation, and this guy, oh my God, this guy was so brutal in the things that he said to me on the stage, right? In the improv. It was just acting, it was characters. And the acting teacher said, Tony, take it easy on this guy, right? But the weird thing was, it didn't bother me so much because I'd been brutalized in my childhood. I got used to it. Okay. So there's a good side of that you don't get, doesn't bother you so much when life is difficult. But the problem is, then if somebody treats you bad and doesn't give you what you deserve, you just accept it. So when you look at battered wives, why does a battered, one woman, she gets slapped once, she said, that's it, I'm done. The other woman gets slapped 10 times and sticks around because in the subconscious, it feels normal. This is why you have to look at the moon. The people that get the least money and the least love are the people that have Saturn moon because they think they don't deserve it. They don't consciously think it in the subconscious, and that's determined by the moon. Now, for people like that, I send them to a therapy called rebirthing. Rebirthing is a breathing technique. There's books called I Deserve Love and Loving Relationships by a woman named Sondra Ray, Sondra, Sondra Ray. And she takes people through this rebirthing process where you breathe very deeply, the same way you breathe as a baby, but you have a person there with you, the practitioner. And eventually, memories come up from childhood, and you find out that there's things in the subconscious mind you didn't know.
Correct.
Once you know them, you can start to work on them. So I
Yes.
have all throughout this, all throughout this BRAHA Sutras, there's all kinds of techniques that I
Correct.
mention of what you have to do if you have these problems or if you have clients that have these problems. That's what I talk about. Um, Another thing is mass karma. If you're an astrologer and you think that every time that somebody dies, it's going to show up in their horoscope, like 30 million soldiers or 50 million soldiers between the age of 18 and 25 died in World War II. You think that's going to show up in their horoscopes? Think again. That's called mass karma. So when you're doing readings and a person comes to you and they say, this is happening and this is happening, if you cannot find a legitimate reason for why that's happening, you use the three most valuable words in astrology. I don't know. I don't see it. It doesn't show up. You don't lie. You don't say, oh, it must be because of this. Oh, it must be because of that.
Correct.
That is such a bad habit. I cannot tell you what a bad habit it is. We all do it. We all want to do it. You can't do it. If you want to be a great astrologer, it's going to take 10 years minimum to become good, to not be making stupid mistakes. And another one of the sutras, I love this one. Sometimes words jump out of the mouth and you go,
Yes.
oh God, what did I just say?
Yes.
Right?
Right, sir. This happens
So,
many times.
yes. Now, you cannot avoid it. Don't blame yourself. You cannot avoid it. It's like being an actor in a live show. Stuff happens.
Correct.
But what you have to do is first of all, you have to say, did I just say something that's going to harm this person? Because they're going to listen to that recording over and over for years. So when something stupid jumps out of the mouth, you have to clean it up. You have to say, well, you wait, hold on for a second. Let me phrase it differently, or that's not exactly accurate. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Now, the strategy that you want to use is this. You want to think like a policeman or a policewoman. If you're a policeman or a policewoman, throughout your job, throughout your job of looking for criminals and looking for crimes, there's going to be one thing on your mind that's always going to be there that you have to have in the back of your mind. If you're a policeman or a policewoman, you have to be aware that you got a gun on your belt. You have a weapon that could kill somebody.
So,
So
correct.
if you're talking to this person over here and doing this, and you're not aware that you got a gun that somebody could pull out of your pocket and use on you, I mean, you simply have to have your awareness. There's got to be a little voice in the head that says, you got a gun there, you got a gun there, you got a gun there. So if you're an astrologer and you know that you're going to make mistakes, because we do, that something stupid's going to come out of your mouth. Oh, you should never have children. Don't ever tell someone they should never have children. You can say, you're going to have to be careful and you might have problems, but certain things you don't do. But you can't help it and they come out. Okay. So you have to have, like the policeman is always has that gun. You have to have a peripheral vision about stupid statements. And let me tell you something about these stupid statements. I can tell you about stupid statements that I made way back in 1983, 84, 85. I didn't forget them because they were stupid and they were harmful. They were mistakes. And there were clients who said, why did you tell me this? One woman, I said, God, I'm embarrassed. She was maybe 30. I said, you'll have a marriage, but in this year over here, 5 or 10 years later, it'll probably end. She said, why did you tell me that? I can't get that out of my mind. And all I can do is hope that the work I do in the last 20 years overcomes the negative karma of the first 10 or 20. But you're going to make mistakes. So another mistake is to say something too extreme, like you should never be a writer. And then you find out they want to be a writer. And if they want something that badly, they might not have found it till they were 45 or 50. But when they are dead set on, I want to be a musician, and they're 40, right? And you told them, oh, don't ever be a musician because the third house is bad. And then you find out, at the age of 45, I realized this is what I want. You better back up and clean it up, because when a person wants something that badly, it's probably within their dharma, even though you made a mistake. What do you expect? I tell people at the start of a reading, not everybody, but when I'm doing a first time reading, I tell everybody, look, this is probably going to be about, a good reading is going to be about 70% accurate. And when a client says to me, everything you said was accurate, I go, oh God, it's impossible. It's just not possible. So um, with this book, um, some of it is going to contradict things that you
No.
have read or heard, and a lot of it is actually addressing: do you want to be accurate, or do you want to be part of a tradition where it's like a religion? If it's a religion, then what you're getting is dogma, like a religion, and some of it will be accurate and some of it won't be accurate. And to me, it's better to find out what's accurate and then pass it on to future generations so that they can get better. And I'm going to talk about one sutra that, this is part of what this process was like of writing. Much of it I already knew what I wanted to say, but then when I would begin saying it, I would refine it and go further. But some of the ones were ones that I had no answer for 40 years. And I said, I've got to see if I can figure this out. And so one that I had, well, there was one that took me a long time. It wasn't during the writing. That's I used to believe that if Jupiter went through Cancer or Pisces in my chart, it would be better for that house. I have found no evidence of that. If Saturn goes through Aries, it's going to be worse than usual in my chart. I've found no evidence for that. But I learned that after 20 years because my teachers taught it to me. But um, something like I think I probably asked my teachers and they didn't give an answer. They didn't know. When you're running a Jupiter dasha, and Jupiter's in the third house giving you good arts and good brothers and sisters, and you're in the dasha, does it throw an aspect onto the ninth house and make travel better? Or if you're in a Saturn dasha and Saturn's in the first house, is it aspecting the seventh, hurting the marriage during the dasha? And I never had an answer for this because I saw it work. Occasionally, I would see it work, but it never worked with any consistency, and I never used it. But I would hear other astrologers, oh, well, you're in Venus, and Venus is in the fourth house. This is going to help your career because Venus throws an aspect on the 10th. Natally, it helps, but not in the dasha. But I had to figure this out because it works sometimes. But a dasha is 10 years long. So occasionally I'll see something within the 10 years that makes me think the dasha planet's throwing it. But if it's throwing it, it has to throw it all 10 years or whatever it is. So I started thinking about this, and the thing that made it crystal clear, 100%, when a planet's running its dasha, it does not throw an aspect. And here's how you know. Here's how you know. In natal astrology, if you have exalted Saturn, that's great for the house of Saturn. But the opposite house, natally, is in trouble, extra trouble, not just because it's Saturn, because it's aspecting its fallen sign. If you have Mars in the seventh house, it's harming marriage. Natally, it also gives you mechanical technical skills because natally it aspects the first house. And it can make you redheaded, it can make you fiery, it can make you aggressive. But if you have a planet in the dasha and it's exalted, let's say that you have Venus exalted in the 10th house and you have a Venus dasha for 20 years. Can you imagine an astrologer saying, this is going to be fantastic because you got an exalted Venus in the career house, big success, but I'm sorry to say your fourth house is going to suffer for 20 years because Venus is going to aspect its fallen sign. You see? Or you have a fallen Jupiter. Well, I won't take that. I'll take, you have a fallen sun in the 10th degree of Libra in the fifth house, which is going to be terrible. Wait, and what did I say? A fallen sun? Okay, so you have a fallen sun in the fifth house. It's going to be terrible for children. I'm sorry. But it's going to throw an aspect unto
On
the
the
11th house, its
gates.
exaltation sign. Your 11th house is going to be fantastic. This is utterly ridiculous. They do not throw aspects. The dasha planets do not, or the bhukti planets, they do not throw aspects. And I promise you, for the next 50 years, I don't care how many people read my book, I don't care how many people, they will still do it. Because there's not enough skepticism in this field. There's too much gullibility, and there is the case of people not cleansing their emotional psychological problems, so the mind doesn't function, quite the way it should. But that's what this book is written for the people that are serious. The people, I'll tell you two things that the people that actually want to be great astrologers will do. The two things that they will do is, one, they will start they will start getting into self-improvement, cleansing. It won't be, for some people it's not fun, but they will, if they've had bad childhoods, if they've had difficult experiences, they will actually go to therapists or to self-improvement workshops or seminars strictly to be a better astrologer. That's what they will do. And very few people will do that, but that's what they'll do. The other thing is, the people that actually want to be really accurate, they'll read the book 5 or 10 times. And I know how many people will not do this, because I have so many people that tell me, I really want to be good at this. And I say, how many times did you read my second Jyotish book, The Art and Practice of Ancient Hindu Astrology? And they say, once. That tells you they're not serious. They say they're serious, but they're not serious. And another thing is, another interesting sutra. If you're an astrologer and you're practicing for spiritual people, most of my people are spiritual. I don't get people off the street. They read my books, they're into metaphysics. So, not so much now, but years ago, I would say 1 out of every 7 or 8 people would say to me, can I achieve moksha?
Correct.
Can I achieve enlightenment?
That is the main question nowadays.
Okay. Nowadays, I don't get that question very much. I used to get it a lot. So here's the thing. First of all, I've seen no difference between the great saints that everybody says are enlightened and the others. They're all spiritual. There's nothing particularly significant that says one more than the other. They're just very, I get a lot of spiritual people. What you want to do in these cases is you want to say, tell me your definition of enlightenment. Now, if they say my definition of enlightenment is no suffering ever, having special powers, achieving a state of perfection, you can say to them, I'm so sorry, no, you'll never get that. Now, if you're wrong, I'm fine being wrong 3 times out of 10. I'd like to be right 10 times, but it's not going to happen probably. But I don't mind being wrong 3 times out of 10. If you say that to somebody, you might be wrong 1 out of every 500 million. Because even if you look at every single spiritual movement where there's a big guru, he or she is the only enlightened one. The 10,000 people are not. Nobody gets it, because they're selling you something that is not realistic.
Correct.
Now, the definition I use is the definition of Advaita. Um, Buddha's quote. What is it now? There, I forget it. It'll come back to me in a minute. But but when you understand that who you are is essentially awareness or consciousness, not the body, not the thought, not the feelings, that is not you. Okay. Um, deed, deeds are done, words are spoken, there is no doer. Deeds are done, words are spoken, there is no doer. Something like that was the Buddha quote. And once you understand that, there is no doer. So I am not there's no James speaking to you here. There's not a James Braha speaking. There's an appearance of a James. There's an illusion of a James speaking. The reason that there's not really a James is because I'm not the body. I'm not my true nature, the nature that cannot be cut by the sword, drowned by water, burned by fire. That nature is not the body, it's not the thoughts, it's not the feelings. I can get rid of the thoughts and feelings and the body by simply taking a sword and cutting my head off, and it's all over. But the part of you that is eternal is the awareness, a consciousness or awareness that is here 24/7. So when it is understood that all there really is awareness or consciousness, the world is going to come to an end. It's going to burn up in a ball of fire, and it's totally irrelevant because awareness or consciousness was never born and never dies. It just is. And then a world pops up, a dream world, a dream James pops up in there, comes along for 1 billion years, gets destroyed. Doesn't matter if it comes or goes. It's not real. That has to be seen. That's what enlightenment is about. However, and that's the part that is so important to understand. Last night I was talking to my wife. I told you I was sad. I said, the writing is over. I can never do this again. I can never put 50, 40 years of experience in one book. I just did it. It's over. What do I do now? She said, well, write another book. What are you going to write? I said, well, the thing that really altered my practice of astrology and my ability to see a horoscope and finally put it all together was after I really and truly understood non-duality. And once that was understood, there was so much attachment to money, attachment to family, attachment to this, attachment to reputation, attachments all over the place. When that falls away, it's not like you don't still have desires. It's not like I want to suffer, but the bulk of it, when you understand that the whole thing is a dream, except for the awareness or consciousness, and you're the awareness or consciousness, once that is realized, all this nonsense in your brain, it's just gone. Okay? When that happens, you start to look at a horoscope, and your brain is not thinking about what happened to you and being affected by all it just doesn't. So your mind becomes clear, and you say, holy cow. I mean, it's only within the last 10 years that I realized, oh, two planets are hitting that house and it's devastated. Oh, two benefics are hitting that and it's fantastic, right? That's when those things began
Clear.
to be seen because the mind becomes clear. So the people that are serious about wanting, you could not even care about enlightenment. You could just want to be a great astrologer. And if you wanted to, you'd go to get non-duality so that you could be a great astrologer. But you have to really want it badly to go through all that so that you could be a great astrologer. So when you ask a person, what's your definition of moksha? They're going to tell you perfection. Okay? So you can explain everything I just explained, but you can also say to them, okay, so you know somebody who's perfect and has no suffering. Yes, I do, my guru. Okay, go to your guru. Go to your guru. Get a hold of the guru's wife, mother, friend. Have a gun. Hold a gun to the guru's relative and say, I'm going to kill your wife or your son and see what happens then. Or take away all their money and see what happens then. Or talk to their spouse and see what they tell you about them. So the idea of enlightenment, I know because I started when I was 20. And we were taught that enlightenment was perfection. It was no more suffering. And when I finally understood it at the age of 53, I thought, boy, how incredibly stupid we all were. Did we never think? Did we never think about the fact that the reference point, the me, never goes away? Because if I say to the guru, I'm going to explode a bomb, I'll either do it in your city or that city. When the guru says, go do it over there, that's showing you they have a reference point. And if they, and here's the thing, if they don't have the reference point, if they say, go ahead, kill my mother, she's just an illusion. If they say that, then you say, oh, so enlightenment makes you a zombie. This is what has to be explained to the person. And once, but there is a realistic definition of enlightenment through Advaita. I wrote a book called Living Reality about when Sailor Bob came from Australia, taught it to me, so I got it really good. And so once that's understood, it's, you know.
Very
So
true, sir.
as my first mentor Santanam used to say when the class was over, thus
Okay, so we will never get tired of your giving us these sutras. Each of your video on my channel, there are so beautiful comments, lovely comments there. Keep the sutras working. This sutra is working. I hope the viewers also like this Braha Sutras session. And sir is so lively that we
I,
just
I
want
want
to
to
hear.
I want to say one other thing. On Facebook the other day, somebody commented, James, I've been waiting 2 decades for your next book. Oh, did you close it?
No, sir. I've just put your book for a few seconds
Oh,
so
okay.
that we forget it.
So on Facebook, somebody commented, James, I've been waiting for your next book for 2 decades. And I said, what? And I said, yeah, I wrote The Art and Practice of Ancient Hindu Astrology in the year 2000. I had been practicing for 15 years. I had a lot of experience. But yeah, he was waiting for 2 decades. Now, I'll tell you something. Most of the reading that I did, I don't read a lot of astrology books. Most of the reading that I did was in the late 70s and in the 80s. And my favorite authors back then were Western, Robert Hand, Steve Arroyo, Isabel Hickey, but I think she was gone by no, yeah. But anyway, there were only 3 or 4 authors, right, that I really liked. There were plenty of books, but I'm very, very picky. And after they wrote 2 or 3 books, I kept waiting for more and waiting for more. They never came. And I was so disappointed by that. So I've been waiting for 2 decades. And for that, so I did what I wish Robert Hand and Stephen Arroyo and Isabel Hickey, I wish they had written some more. But, I'm not saying that they did something wrong. They went on with their career, but for that reason, I'm so thrilled that I was able to, and it happened accidentally. I did not sit down to write this book. I sat down to write a couple of hundred of points that I gave at the lecture, and it turned out to be something way beyond that. Okay, Buzz. Second Buzz.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful session. Hope to have more of these with you, sir. And I wish you all the best for your new book. I will definitely give the links below and
Google Play. Let me just say it right
Google
now.
Play.
Google Play books
Yes,
for the
Google
Indians.
Play in India. Please go and search for this book. You'll get it after 2 3 days.
And I'm
And
going to put my other Jyotish books on Google Play,
Google
which they
Play
haven't been.
also.
Yeah.
Sure. All the books written by Sir will also be available on Google Play. Uh, a list of, I will just put his website also, so you can buy even his books written before this book. Sir has written many books, so many years into astrology, and I think this is the best book of so many years of his experience, all coming together in just one single book. 216 sutras is no joke, I think, and such wonderful sutras. Sir has already shared a few with us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Viewers, please share, like our work, and thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you, sir.